The incident left her feeling deeply embarrassed, occurring directly within the nation's premier military training area. Lacking any identifying marks, without a uniform, she appeared to be a cleaning lady who had mistakenly entered, someone remarked. Ava Collins, with her hair in a low ponytail, wearing canvas shoes and a wrinkled white shirt, stood alone, facing a barrage of mocking comments. 30 minutes elapsed before her husband's helicopter, belonging to the highest-ranking general in the military, landed. The strategic camp at St. Hawthorne's functioned as a fortress emphasizing discipline, with barbed wire fences enclosing a large area of muddy training grounds, advanced simulators, and barracks that were meticulously polished. This exclusive 4-week program, designed for the children of generals, senators, and chiefs of staff, served as an intensive training ground for battlefield survival, crisis management, and mental fortitude. Young military trainees, equipped with $2,000 tactical gear, practiced maneuvers while drones, transmitting live video, circled overhead, their personalized rifles displayed engraved family crests. The command center, a substantial structure of glass and concrete, overlooked the training area, displaying live tracking data on its numerous screens. Ava Collins arrived, her worn canvas sneakers sinking into the earth, her white button-up shirt showing slight wrinkles, her simple ponytail gently moving. At 28, having grown up in a tranquil Virginia town, she came with her boyfriend, a young strategic advisor, carrying a well-worn backpack containing a notebook and a water bottle. She displayed no badge, insignia, or indication of her past. The cadets' gazes scrutinized her, their whispers building like a storm. Ava's presence disrupted the camp's rigid hierarchy, and her backpack seemed disrespectful to the elite's carefully constructed environment. A cadet, Ethan Holt, rested against a Humvee, his $3,000 Oakley sunglasses reflecting the light. He muttered, loud enough to draw attention, "Look at that backpack, probably purchased during a post-COVID clearance sale." A senator's daughter, dressed in a $1,500 Under Armour kit, laughed, lightly bumping her friends. She doesn't seem to understand the distinction between a training ground and a gun barrel. Laughter spread through the mess hall, cadets quickly hiding smiles behind gloved hands. Ava remained motionless, her gray eyes unwavering, her backpack resting on her shoulder. She had come to observe, invited by her boyfriend, but the camp's rejection felt like a sharp rebuke to her reserved nature. The audience's frustration grew, their emotions tightening at the dismissive behavior of these officials, their contempt a blow against Ava's gentle demeanor. The taunts intensified, a spiteful performance led by the camp's influential members. Vanessa Pierce, the daughter of a chief of staff, stepped forward, her tactical vest spotless, her brunette braids as precise as her expression. At 24, having grown up in DC's power corridors, she had earned a reputation for defeating those unfamiliar with the environment. She looked at Ava's sneakers and expressed disdain. "She appears to be someone who has never demonstrated a competitive nature," she stated, her voice cutting. The cadets responded with laughter, the sound bouncing off the barracks. Vanessa swung her braid, the fragrance of her cedar-scented lotion filling the air, a scent Ava found overpowering. Ava's fingers tightened on her backpack, her face remaining calm, while the audience's anger escalated, their hearts pounding due to this personal attack, Vanessa's arrogance appearing as a spark in the cold atmosphere. The scorn intensified, becoming a deliberate and organized challenge to Ava's presence. A drill instructor, Margaret Klein, moved forward, her uniform sharply pressed, her face showing years of upholding regulations. At 48, raised in Texas, she took pride in preserving order. "Miss, this camp is restricted to authorized personnel only," she stated, gesturing towards the gate, her voice resolute but not unkind. The cadets responded with cheers, their tactical boots reflecting the light as they waved her away from the grounds. A general's son, dressed in a $2,000 Arc'teryx outfit, exclaimed, "She's likely someone's temporary girlfriend, just here for the food." Laughter erupted, cadets playfully bumping into each other. A squad leader whispered, "That shirt's a disgrace, and she has the nerve to stand here?" It was clear, she didn't belong in a war zone. The criticisms felt like a guillotine, each phrase a blow against Ava's silence. The audience's anger intensified, their hearts aching for Ava, enraged by this group's continued harshness. The cadets' disdain became cruel as Ava stood on the training grounds, their taunts a planned attack intended to break her resolve. A group of elite trainees in $5,000 custom tactical kits assembled near the armory, their voices a poisonous blend. One remarked, tossing a training grenade in the direction of Ava's worn sneakers, "She's a blight on this camp's prestige." Another waved a custom rifle, shouting, back to the civilian sidelines, "Sweetheart, her backpack's a joke. Did she find it in a surplus store?" The laughter from the mess hall grew loud, staff members subtly gesturing to each other, their silver pins reflecting the light. A naval officer's son yelled, "She's an insult to every drill run here." The verbal attacks felt like a relentless pressure, each word a challenge against Ava's composed stillness. Nathaniel's helicopter was miles away, but the camp's disapproval felt overwhelming. The audience's anger escalated, their hearts racing, outraged by this planned act of unkindness, their fury burning, ready to challenge the elite's pride. Vanessa Pierce acted again, her cruelty a deliberate action to hurt Ava in front of the elite. During a pause close to the mess hall, she took a water bottle, walked casually over, and poured it into Ava's sneakers, her smile malicious. "Really?" She sneered, and her group burst into laughter. The cadets cheered, their contempt a heavy and oppressive wave, their whispers circulating, "She's nothing." Ava's gray eyes became colder than steel, but her expression remained steady, a defense against the treachery. The training ground extended past the barracks, but the camp's disdain felt like an immense pressure. The audience's anger surged, their hearts aching for Ava, furious at this public humiliation exposed before the ranks. The cadets' disapproval escalated, their words sharp and cruel. A student from a wealthy family, dressed in a $4,000 Patagonia outfit, rested against a supply crate, speaking in a harsh tone. "She's insignificant, likely trying to charm her way to a medal," he remarked, indicating Ava's worn shirt. "Look at those sneakers. Did she find them at a second-hand store?" His group of friends chuckled, their personalized knives glinting. A colonel's daughter exclaimed, "She brings shame to those who recommended her." The laughter felt overwhelming, their arrogance felt like a public condemnation. Ava straightened her ponytail, her gray eyes steady, but the camp's ridicule felt like a heavy burden. The audience's resentment intensified, their hearts racing at this ongoing betrayal, their anger ablaze poised to destroy the camp's integrity. Vanessa Pierce's disapproval became more pronounced, her words a deliberate attempt to hurt Ava before the camp's leadership. Her presence was jarring, a clear affront, she stated, her tactical vest reflecting the light as she indicated Ava's wrinkled shirt. Nathaniel Cross would be disappointed to witness this, a civilian on his property. The squad responded with laughter, their custom knives making a metallic sound as they looked towards Ava's backpack. "She's a visitor, not a tactician," Vanessa remarked, her voice carrying enough to quiet surrounding comments. The cadets expressed their disapproval with cheers, a palpable wave, their comments circulating, "She's an imposter." A quiet intensity blazed in Ava's gray eyes, yet her smile remained, a defense against the pain of betrayal. The command center was visible past the barracks, but the camp's disapproval felt like an unbearable burden. The crowd's anger surged, their feelings sympathetic to Ava, incensed at this heiress's deception revealed to all. The team's involvement intensified the hurt, their actions a new betrayal. A logistics officer, Clara Voss, in a fitted uniform, moved ahead, her voice laced with scorn. "Miss, the civilian viewing area is that way," she said, gesturing toward a distant bench, her smirk reflected by nearby cadets. "We do not allow guests of that nature on the training field," she added, eliciting laughter from the onlookers. At 32 years old, raised in Maryland, Clara took pride in her role as a gatekeeper. The crowd's approval was a powerful force, their arrogance a public display. Ava held her backpack, her gray eyes unwavering, but the camp's disapproval felt like an oppressive burden. The audience's anger intensified, their hearts racing due to this blatant disrespect, their fury directed at St. Hawthorne's reputation. The camp staff's disapproval became obvious, their actions a deliberate public humiliation intended for the cadets' entertainment. A senior coordinator, Richard Hayes, approached Ava close to the training simulator, his uniform immaculate, his voice laced with condescension. "Miss, this field is reserved for qualified trainees only," he stated, ensuring the crowd could hear. Her clothing appeared unsuitable for the program. He indicated her sneakers, his smile echoed by colleagues nearby. "We generally don't permit such casual attire at St. Hawthorne," he stated, prompting amusement from the cadets and instructors. The surrounding group's agreement felt overwhelming, their perceived superiority a pointed display. Ava held her backpack, her gray eyes steady, yet the camp's disapproval felt heavy. The audience's anger surged, their hearts racing at this perceived institutional betrayal, their fury directed against St. Hawthorne's integrity. The cadets' aggression intensified, their voices a sharp and bitter chorus. A diplomat's son, outfitted in a $3,000 North Face ensemble, leaned forward, his voice loud and critical. "She's a fraud, likely infiltrated to act as a war tourist," he stated, his unit concurring, their tactical watches displaying the time. "Her commands are seen as a joke, merely a tactic to fit in," another addition and loudly proclaimed. "She's considered a con artist, the camp has been deceived." Laughter erupted, each rumor feeling like a blow aimed at Ava's heart. Staff members shared falsehoods, their accusations spreading rapidly. "She's believed to be seeking an unearned benefit." Ava touched her backpack, her expression unwavering, but the public's defamation felt like a heavy burden. The audience's anger surged, their sympathies with Ava, their outrage a powerful force against this harmful falsehood, eager for the truth to expose the elite's deception. The cadets' harshness escalated as they spread damaging rumors, their words a sharp and bitter torrent throughout the barracks. A Pentagon intern, outfitted in a $6,000 tactical kit, moved forward, his voice prominent and direct. "She's a fake, likely paid to get into this camp," he stated, his team concurring, their cufflinks glinting. "Her appearance is a deception, a tactic to disrupt the trials." Another claim added, "She's a con artist. Nathaniel has been misled." The laughter was loud, each rumor a painful blow to Ava's heart. Instructors shared false statements, their accusations spreading rapidly. "She's seeking the recognition." Ava touched her backpack, her eyes unwavering, but the crowd's defamation felt like a heavy burden. The audience's anger surged, their sympathies with Ava, their resentment a powerful force against this harmful accusation, eager for the truth to expose the elite's falsehoods. The final evaluation approached, a jungle warfare simulation intended to challenge even the most resilient. Each team of 10 had to traverse a dense forest, construct a camp, safeguard their squad, and implement a counterattack strategy. The cadets moved quickly, their radios buzzing, their maps misinterpreted, their self-importance colliding. Disorder broke out, with arguments and lost signals, leaving a team stranded on high ground. Vanessa Pierce issued commands, her braids swinging, but her squad hesitated, their perimeter vulnerable. Ava moved forward, her sneakers silent on the mud, her wrinkled shirt a noticeable difference from the camp's tactical appearance. She seized the radio, reviewed the map, and assumed command. "Team 2, flank right at 15 degrees. Establish a perimeter," she stated, her voice calm but resolute. "Team 4, withdraw from the elevated position, transition to a staggered retreat." She addressed Vanessa. "As acting leader, relinquish command. I will assume full responsibility for the mission." The cadets paused, then complied, their actions precise under her instructions. The simulation concluded exceptionally quickly, the fastest operation ever recorded at St. Hawthorne's. There were no simulated injuries, and every squad was recovered. The forest became still, the audience's emotions moved, their frustration changing to eagerness, Ava's restrained power a glimmer in the cold. The training field reflected a scene of shocked expressions. The cadets' tactical gear appeared muted compared to Ava's simple shirt. A lead instructor, Colonel Raymond Holt, advanced, his beret shadowing his face, his eyes displaying surprise. At 55, a veteran of 3 wars, he indicated the command center screens. "That was the most precise operation I've witnessed in decades," he remarked, his voice wavering. "Who is she?" The cadets gathered within the debriefing tent, their custom knives catching the light. "Where did she acquire that command style? Why was she dressed that way? Vanessa's braid appeared to droop, her self-assurance a diminishing trace. The committee chair, General Laura Tate, moved closer. Where did you acquire this expertise? Ava hesitated, her gray eyes unwavering. I served as a Special Forces major, she replied. I left after a failed mission resulted in the loss of someone dear to me. A hush fell over the camp, murmurs about her identity circulating. Ava Collins, the youngest female officer to command a tactical battalion, disappeared from official documentation following a puzzling resignation. A wave of pride and anticipation filled the onlookers as Ava's revelations altered the camp's existing power structure. A noticeable change occurred, signaled by a deep hum as a black UH-60 Blackhawk descended to the landing zone. Unexpected and without prior announcement, the cadets' faces lost color. The door slid open, and General Nathaniel Cross emerged, his four-star uniform gleaming, accompanied by 2 aides. At 42, raised in Colorado, he served as the Supreme Commander of Strategic Operations, a renowned figure in military circles. He proceeded directly to Ava, offering a precise salute. Major Collins, you haven't lost your edge, he stated, his voice steady. He then took her hand, kissed her forehead, and turned to address the camp. I am her husband, he stated, and he shared reports indicating she had been ridiculed, demeaned, and even subjected to physical mistreatment at what is presented as a prestigious training center. The barracks fell silent, camera drones suspended, instructors' expressions pale. The audience experienced a surge of emotion, their anger shifting to admiration as Nathaniel's words exposed the deception that had concealed Ava's experience. The camp remained motionless, Vanessa Pierce's tactical vest sliding from her shoulder, her braid offering no protection. Nathaniel confronted the camp director, his gray eyes unwavering. I insist on an immediate investigation, he stated. Everyone involved in mistreating her, including your daughter, will be suspended, lose student privileges, and be marked for a violation of military ethics. No one should advance by belittling others. The cadets' demeanor appeared to lessen, their faces drawn with surprise. Claravas remained still, her supervisory role an acknowledgement of failure. Nathaniel indicated Ava, his hand firm. She directed battalions in conflict areas. Your camp disappointed her, not the reverse. The crowd erupted in applause, their anger shifting to admiration as Ava's honesty started to redefine St. Hawthorne's history. Colonel Holt acknowledged, his beret pulled down in deference, the area holding still anticipating her reply. Ava advanced, her creased shirt a subtle symbol of authority, and clasped Nathaniel's hand. I did not arrive to guide, she stated, her voice gentle yet distinct. I came to observe. She hesitated, her gray eyes examining the cadets. When guidance was required, it was provided. The camp exploded with sound, instructors rising to their feet, their applause a magnificent display of admiration. Vanessa Pierce lowered her head, her vest offering no protection, and quietly apologized to Major Collins. Officials from the Pentagon came forward, presenting offers of a return to duty with unsteady hands. Ava smiled, gently squeezed Nathaniel's hand, and stated, I'm finished with conflicts. I simply came to observe the camp. The crowd erupted in cheers, their emotions heightened as her poise dismantled the established order's pride. The consequences were swift, a judgment conveyed without words. Vanessa Pierce faced an indefinite suspension, her father's position as chief of staff rendered powerless, and escorts escorted her toward the gate. Clara Voss was moved to desk duty, effectively ending her career as a gatekeeper. Ethan Holt, the cadet who had ridiculed Ava's backpack, was disqualified from final trials, extinguishing his ambitions. The Texion who had derided her sneakers was expelled, his family's connections proving ineffective. Those who had laughed faced disciplinary action, and their responsibilities lessened. The cadets who had circulated rumors concealed their timepieces, their power voided. Ava stood next to Nathaniel, her canvas sneakers planted firmly, her backpack a declaration of her honesty. The audience's hearts pounded, their outrage shifting to jubilation, Ava's when shining brightly and humbling the camp's prominent figures within St. Hawthorne's respected area. Nathaniel Cross held the training grounds with his authority, his voice cutting through the noise. "You questioned Ava Collins," he stated, his gray eyes conveying restrained anger, the essence of this camp's heritage. "Your equipment, your ranks are irrelevant against her reality." He displayed a tablet, showing a list of revoked permissions. Vanessa Pierce's training was suspended, Clara Voss lost event access, and the cadets were removed from trial eligibility, all decisions made by St. Hawthorne's board. "Your identities are removed from military records," he announced, his gaze fixed on Vanessa. "You have suffered more than just lost practice exercises. You have lost your integrity." The audience's intakes of breath were a chorus of surprise, their systems collapsing under his direction. Ava stood next to him, her creased shirt illuminated, her victory confirmed by Nathaniel's powerful outcry. The audience erupted, their spirits lifted as his worldwide punishment destroyed the privileged's presumption. The downfall of the elite was a spectacle, their arrogance shattered under Nathaniel's command. Vanessa Pierce stumbled off the training field, her tactical vest a mockery, her reputation a cautionary tale among the cadets. Clara Voss's gatekeeping empire plummeted, her scorn a public wound, her escorts pushing her toward the supply exit. Ethan Holt's aspirations collapsed, his mockery exposed as lies. The Pentagon intern who'd spread rumors hid his cufflinks, his eligibility void. Those who had shown scorn were let go, their careers concluded. The diplomat's son who had laughed was ostracized, his reputation diminished. Ava remained steadfast, her sneakers a subtle symbol of triumph, her gray eyes resolute. The camp's drones recorded the elite's downfall, their empires collapsing under Ava's direction. The audience's hearts pounded, their resentment shifting to admiration, Ava's success and Nathaniel's fury, consuming the military's wealthiest within St. Hawthorne's sacred grounds. Under Nathaniel's command, the camp's established order collapsed, revealing deep-seated flaws. He addressed the camp director, his words sharp and direct. "Your training protocols are a sham," he stated, his gray eyes unwavering. "Every rule that caused my wife distress is null and void, effective immediately." With a tap of his phone, a wave of notifications flooded the staff's devices. Contracts were terminated, access was denied, and entire squads were disqualified. Texan's connections were non-existent, his influence a memory of a bygone empire. The colonel's daughter's team was removed, her career halted. The instructor who had laughed was led away, her uniform somber. Ava stood next to Nathaniel, her backpack a silent declaration of her truth, her victory a shining light in the camp's fading glow. The audience's spirits rose, their anger changing into triumph. Nathaniel's fury a powerful surge that washed away St. Hawthorne's pride. The cadets' failings were confirmed as they confronted the drones, their confidence shattered by Nathaniel's orders. Sequentially, they approached the field's perimeter, their tactical gear lackluster, their voices unsteady. Ethan Holt turned towards the barracks, his Oakley sunglasses appearing insincere. "I was mistaken to ridicule Major Collins," he stated, his apology a public admission of error, his previous challenges rendered meaningless. The diplomat's offspring followed, his North Face gear worn, his reputation diminished. "I regret propagating falsehoods," he murmured, his impact gone. The colonel's daughter expressed her regret, her eligibility now non-existent. The staff who had previously mocked them stood in the rear, their uniforms removed, their careers concluded. Ava stood next to Nathaniel, her shirt a subtle declaration, her backpack representing her reality. The audience erupted, their spirits lifted as the apologies of the privileged resonated, their established structures collapsing under Ava's direction and Nathaniel's consistent strength. Ava's history remained unknown, not to the cadets, not to Vanessa, and not to the staff. At 20, she undertook training in muddy fields while studying tactics at night, her determination securing her a commission. By 24, she led a battalion in a classified operation, her bravery exceptional until a mission setback resulted in the loss of a friend's life, prompting her resignation. At 26, she encountered Nathaniel at a veterans event, her understated strength attracting him amidst a crowd of boastfulness. Their marriage, a private ceremony in a Virginia forest, was founded on love and shared experiences. Vanessa's lotion, the staff's uniforms, and the cadet's gear couldn't compare to the weight of the backpack Ava carried. Now she stood on the field, her ponytail a clear sign of her authenticity, her silence a powerful force that exposed their falsehoods. The camp fell still, but the cadet's eyes remained fixed on Ava. A junior instructor approached, his voice quiet with deference. "Major Collins, your orders," he said, his previous disdain now a mark of regret. The cadets withdrew, their impact diminished, their families working to repair relationships with St. Hawthorne. The Pentagon observed, their power wavering under Ava's dominance. She proceeded towards the command center, her gray eyes following Nathaniel's confident smile. The drones lessened their brightness, the spring light lessening, as a procession of the military's wealthiest sought her consideration, their gestures a quiet submission to the woman they had previously ridiculed. Ava chose not to resume her prior position, but agreed to serve as a guest instructor, delivering a single, exclusive class, achieving victory without fanfare. Her sneakers made a quiet sound on the lecture hall floor, and she carried a backpack over her shoulder, where she mentored a new generation to lead without ego. The camp implemented a new policy, requiring respect for all candidates, irrespective of their background. The field became quiet, the drones motionless, and the legacies of the elites settled like dust. Nathaniel moved closer to her, his gray eyes radiating warmth. "Ready to return home?" She nodded, her gray eyes following his smile. They walked away from the grounds as the spring light diminished, leaving St. Hawthorne irrevocably altered by a singular instruction. A uniform wasn't necessary for her to command attention. Someone who once led entire war zones rarely needs to raise their voice to inspire obedience. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were Ava? The moment she entered the will reading, she was dismissed. A gray linen dress, a faded cardigan, and simple flats were all it took to elicit scorn from a room filled with meticulously styled appearances, their smiles seeming insincere. A man wearing a gold tie initiated the remarks, a mixture of laughter and mockery in his tone. "Is that the maid?" A young woman subtly inclined her head and murmured to her companion, probably a distressed former paramour seeking compensation. Ivy Clark remained near the rear of the room. She remained silent, showing no reaction, merely adjusting the strap of the cloth bag she held. In their eyes, she was merely a shadow, an outsider who had entered a space intended for blood, legacy, and status. However, they were mistaken. The woman they had just humiliated was the legal wife of the man they were all gathered to inherit from. And today's reading of the will was a test she had assisted in creating. The Thorne estate stretched across a wooded hill, its stone walls and iron gates forming a fortress against the world. Inside the grand hall, the scent of old money mingled with polished oak, leather, and the subtle fragrance of roses from vases that cost more than most people's rent. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, capturing the April light and distributing it across a gathering of 42. Relatives, investors, advisors, and assistants. Each one was dressed to assert their position in Logan Thorne's empire. Elegant suits, silk dresses, and diamonds that sparkled with each movement filled the room. Guests mingled, sipping champagne, their expressions of sympathy seemingly as practiced as their smiles. Ivy entered discreetly, her footsteps barely audible on the marble floor. She selected a spot in the back corner, close to a large window that showcased the hazy hills beyond. Her dress was understated, comfortably loose, the gray fabric worn soft with age. A pale blue cardigan, faded with time, slipped gently from one shoulder. Ivy's dark hair was styled in a low bun, with a few strands escaping to soften her features, high cheekbones, hazel eyes that seemed to observe everything, and lips that remained composed even when others might have retorted. At 36, Ivy possessed a quiet beauty that resonated, like a memorable melody. Preston Thorne, Logan's second cousin, rested against a mahogany table, his Rolex gleaming as he smirked. Indeed, how did the cleaning staff gain access? His voice resonated, intentional, prompting amusement from a group of cousins close by. Marissa, Preston's sister, wearing a crimson dress, flipped her hair and remarked, "Perhaps she's here to dust the will before it's read." More laughter followed, brittle and pointed, like shattering glass. Across the room, a younger woman, Clara, a niece with a tech startup and a TikTok following, subtly pushed her friend, Elise, a former assistant to Logan's CFO. Bet she's one of his charity cases, Clara whispered, loud enough for Ivy to hear. Or a mistress he forgot about, Clara continued, looking at her bag as if she were carrying her lunch. Elise chuckled quietly, taking a subtle photo with her phone. This is going on my story, she said. Clara's fingers quickly moved across her phone, a smile spreading as she wrote a caption for the photo she'd just taken of Ivy. Logan's charity case interrupted the will reading. Guess she thinks thrift store chic gets her $1 billion, she said, making sure Ivy heard. The people nearby chuckled, some reaching for their phones to approve and distribute the post, which was quickly becoming popular online. Numerous comments appeared, with strangers referring to Ivy as insignificant and needy, their words a digital attack that reflected the room's disapproval. Ivy remained still, her hazel eyes reflecting the light from Clara's screen. She remained silent. Her quietness appeared to encourage their enjoyment, as if her restraint was a test they needed to overcome. Elise, a friend of Clara's, moved closer, her voice laced with what sounded like sympathy. It was a sad situation. She didn't realize she had become a meme. The laughter increased, a wave of unkindness that reduced Ivy to something less than a person, her self-respect a focus for their mockery. Ivy's fingers briefly pressed into her cloth bag, a simple item carefully made, with no visible branding. She avoided looking at Clara or Elise, ignored Preston's taunt and Marissa's barb. She remained still, her breathing regular, her gaze fixed on the vacant chair at the front where the lawyer would sit. To them, her silence appeared as weakness, a sign of exclusion. They failed to perceive the strength beneath, the way her stillness commanded a room without effort. The crowd swelled as more people arrived. A previous investor, Gerald Hayes, wearing a pinstripe suit, commented to his wife, Logan always had people around. This one doesn't belong here. His wife, adorned with emeralds, concurred, her gaze assessing Ivy's attire. She lacks refinement, she stated, her voice barely audible. Her mere presence is mortifying to the family. A relative, Trevor in a velvet blazer, called out, Hey, dear, the kitchen is over there. He indicated a side entrance, smiling as his companions applauded him. A woman, Lillian, adorned with pearls and a descendant of ants, expressed her disapproval with a cluck of her tongue. She suggested someone should guide her out prior to the lawyer's arrival. She felt it was disrespectful to Logan's memory. Marissa, in a crimson dress that moved with each step, approached Ivy. Her heels made clicking sounds like a timer winding down. She halted close to Ivy, appearing taller, and her perfume was strong. You're in the wrong place, darling, she stated, her voice clear and audible to everyone present. She extended her arm, brushing Ivy's cardigan as if it were discarded, her nails lightly touching the material with clear disapproval. This isn't a soup kitchen. You should leave before you cause further embarrassment. The onlookers observed, a few smiling, others murmuring, but no one intervened. Ivy's hands remained firm on her bag, yet the intrusion into her personal space felt like an offense, Marissa's proximity a deliberate warning. A relative close by whispered, She's got some nerve staying, and the room's agreement regarding Marissa's actions was evident, their quietness sharing in Ivy's distress. Ivy remained still. Her gaze shifted quickly to the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking consistently. She was aware it was active, transmitting to a secure server only 2 individuals could view. One was her, the other wasn't present. Not yet. As Grayson began to read, Trevor quietly moved behind Ivy, the fabric of his velvet blazer softly contacting the wall as he murmured to his companions, Observe this. He retrieved a cocktail napkin from a table close by, wrote charity case with a Sharpie, and discreetly placed it in Ivy's bag while she was unaware. The room observed, quiet amusement rippling through the space as individuals indicated the note, its prominent letters marking Ivy. Clara took another photograph, struggling to contain her laughter, while Elise murmured, She's a walking joke now. Ivy remained oblivious, her attention on Grayson, but the crowd's excitement was palpable, their amusement a painful blow to her sense of self. Trevor relaxed against his chair, smiling, as Lillian commented, "She deserves it for appearing like that." The prank was not only unkind, but also a performance, intended to make Ivy appear foolish for simply being present among them. The lawyer, Arthur Grayson, arrived promptly at 10 a.m. Dressed in a gray suit, his briefcase felt substantial with its contents. He appeared to be in his 60s, his face marked by years of managing wealth and conflicts. A stillness fell over the room as he placed his briefcase on the table, opened it, and retrieved a single, sealed envelope. There was no unnecessary display or introduction. He straightened his glasses and surveyed the attendees, his eyes briefly lingering on Ivy, a moment that disturbed Preston, who furrowed his brow and murmured to Marissa, "What was that?" Gerald Hayes stood, the fabric of his pinstripe suit straining as he gestured toward Ivy, his voice resonant like a judge announcing a ruling. "This woman is a fraud," he stated, his finger shaking with anger. "Logan would never permit someone like her close to his estate. She's here to deceive us. That's undeniable." The room filled with murmurs of concurrence, heads moving in agreement, gazes fixed on Ivy as if she were a criminal apprehended in the act. His wife, her emerald sparkling, added, "She likely possesses a false identification within that worn handbag." The accusation lingered, casting Ivy as a criminal in their perception, her presence unwelcome and offensive. Ivy's gaze remained unwavering, yet the burden of their judgment felt immense, each word a painful blow meant to expose her. The crowd's whispers intensified, their anger a display for one another, Ivy's silence only intensifying their desire to condemn her. Grayson began, "We are gathered to read the last will and testament of Logan Alexander Thorne, which was executed 3 years ago and confirmed as genuine." A wave of whispers filled the room. 3 years. Logan had disappeared only 6 months prior, his private jet having been lost over the Pacific. There was no debris, no remains, just an absence that generated news and avarice. Many believed he was deceased, many hoped so. Preston adjusted his tie, his smirk reappearing. "Let's proceed, then. Who receives the inheritance?" Clara moved closer, her perfectly shaped nails clicking against her phone, already composing her celebratory message. Gerald folded his arms, voicing concerns about stock options. Lillian held her pearls, confiding in Trevor about the summer house in Nice. Ivy remained motionless, her bag now on the floor. She observed Grayson's hands as he opened the seal, the breaking of the wax echoing in the hushed room. They moved closer, their breaths light, their gazes intense. This was the moment. The instant they had prepared for, plotted for, traveled across continents for. Logan's empire, encompassing tech patents, real estate, and a biotech firm valued at $90 billion, was potentially available, or so it appeared. Grayson opened the document, his voice calm yet measured, every word like a stone placed in quiet water. "I, Logan Alexander Thorne, being of sound mind, issue this as my final will. To my family, colleagues, and associates, I bequeath only this statement. Wealth exposes character, it does not define worth." The room fell silent. Preston's smile wavered. Clara's phone moved slightly in her grasp. Gerald's jaw clenched, his wife's emerald seeming surprisingly weighty. "Surely this couldn't be accurate," Grayson stated, appearing calm. "All my assets, company shares, properties, accounts, and intellectual rights, are bequeathed to one person. The individual who stood by me for no reason other than love. The person who never inquired about my net worth, never sought my name for status. My wife, Ivy." A sharp, jagged gasp filled the room as heads turned, searching for the person behind the announcement. Preston let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Wife." Logan wasn't married. Marissa's hand covered her mouth, her red fingernails contrasting with her whitening skin. Clara's eyes narrowed, looking towards Elise, who silently questioned, "What the hell?" Gerald pushed back his chair, the sound scratching against the floor. "This is absurd. Logan never spoke of a wife. It must be a deception. Someone has fabricated this." Lillian gripped Trevor's arm, her voice high-pitched. "She's not here, right?" she asked, referring to a possible gold digger they hadn't met, someone attempting to take what belonged to them. Grayson raised a hand, calming them. "The will is valid, it was signed and notarized. We have supporting documents, including a marriage certificate, photographs, and personal letters, all available for verification. He retrieved a folder from his briefcase and opened it, displaying a photograph. It was Logan. He appeared younger, laughing, with his arm around Ivy, who was wearing a simple white dress. 7 years prior, a courthouse stood silent. Suddenly, the atmosphere shattered. Preston struck the table forcefully, declaring, "This is insanity. Who is she?" Clara rose, her phone unnoticed, demanding, "Where's this Ivy? Show her." Trevor responded with a scornful expression, suggesting, "Probably some con artist hiding in Belize." Marissa's voice, sharp with anger, pierced the noise, asking, "If she's real, why is she not here? Too ashamed to show her face?" Ivy advanced. The action was subtle, measured, resembling the shifting of a tide. She moved across the room, her footsteps silent, yet every gaze followed her. Her cardigan shifted gently, and her linen dress shimmered in the light. She paused near Grayson, maintaining a poised stance and a tranquil expression. A simple cloth bag rested on her shoulder, reflecting her understated nature. The quiet was profound. Grayson began to speak, then stopped, his gold tie appearing overly bright. Clara's cheeks reddened, a previous image seeming to glow from her phone. Gerald retreated into his chair, his wife's emeralds appearing less vibrant now. Lillian's pearls appeared to constrict her. Her hand paused in the middle of a movement. Grayson gestured toward Ivy, a subtle acknowledgement in his gaze. "Mrs. Thorne," he stated, delivering the folder to her. She accepted it without a visible reaction, her fingers firm as she opened it, observing the photograph, her lips curving slightly, as if recalling the occasion it captured. Then she shut the folder and turned to address the assembled group. "I did not come for the funds," she declared, her voice distinct and calm, reminiscent of a chime through mist. "I came to understand your character. Who amongst you treated Logan like a person, rather than a financial asset? Who would grieve him, not his wealth?" She stopped, her hazel eyes moving across the assembly, observing each individual with ease. "You have revealed yourselves for who you are." Preston spoke, his voice trembling but resolute. "Are you suggesting you are his spouse? You?" He indicated her dress, her cardigan, his laughter strained. "Logan Thorne married to this? No intention to be rude, madam, but your attire suggests you purchase clothing from second-hand shops." Ivy did not flinch. "I do," she stated plainly. "Logan didn't mind. He appreciated me for who I am, disregarding my clothes or possessions. Can any of you claim the same?" Clara scoffed, crossing her arms. "That's a convincing performance, but I'm skeptical. If you are his wife, what evidence do you have? A photograph isn't sufficient. Anyone can create a false image." Sounds of concurrence spread through the room, encouraging those present. Gerald affirmed, his voice prominent again. "She's correct. We require further validation. Witnesses, official papers, something tangible." Grayson reopened his briefcase, retrieving a bundle of documents. A marriage license, dated 7 years ago, was signed by both parties and 2 witnesses, a nurse named Sarah Ellis and a librarian, Michael Reed. There were personal letters from Logan to Ivy, handwritten, and verified through forensic analysis. Bank records demonstrated joint accounts maintained privately at Logan's request. He paused, retrieving a small USB drive. The drive contained video footage from their wedding. He inserted the drive into a laptop on the table, and a screen on the wall flickered to life. A hush fell over the room as a blurred video appeared on the screen. Courthouse steps, Logan in a plain suit, Ivy in a white dress, both of them smiling as they shared a kiss. Sarah and Michael stood close, applauding. The timestamp aligned with the marriage certificate. The resistance in the room dissipated, faces losing color, eyes shifting to Ivy, who observed the footage with a subdued pain in her expression. Marissa rose to her feet, her voice shaking with anger. "This is a fabrication. You orchestrated this, correct? Intending to, what, make us appear unfavorable. You're insignificant. Logan would never choose someone like you." Her words caused pain, yet Ivy's expression remained unchanged. She allowed Marissa's anger to linger without a reply. Then she spoke, her voice now icier, with a precision that could wound. You are correct about one aspect. This was orchestrated, not to deceive you, but to evaluate you, to determine if any of you were concerned enough to inquire about my identity before you ridiculed me, to see if you would respect Logan's legacy or simply grasp for his fortune. She advanced towards the assembled group, her aura dominating the space. You have failed. Every single one of you. Trevor chuckled, now visibly anxious. Test? Is this some kind of game show? Surely you can't be serious. But his voice faltered as Ivy's gaze locked onto his, unwavering and resolute. She retrieved a small remote from her bag. Logan is not dead, she stated, choosing her words with precision. He is alive, and he has been observing you throughout this entire period. She activated the remote, and a monitor on the wall sprang to life. Within a room, shadowed and quiet, Logan Thorne was seated. Aged 42, possessing a lean build and dark hair touched with gray, his blue eyes remained keen. He reclined in a chair, his demeanor composed yet firm, reminiscent of a judge assessing individuals. A camera feed displayed a live connection with a timestamp visible. It read April 15, 2025, 10:32 a.m. Suddenly, the room erupted with gasps, shouts, and expressions of disbelief. Preston recoiled, his tie disarranged. Clara's phone slipped from her hand, the screen fracturing against the marble. Gerald's wife held his arm tightly, murmuring, "No, it's not possible." Lillian's pearls broke, pearls rolling across the floor. Logan's voice emerged from the monitor, deep and strong. You believed I was gone. You thought this was your opportunity to divide up my life as if it were a cake. But I've been present, observing, hearing every word, each scornful expression, every deception. His eyes moved, seeming to look past the camera towards Ivy. She cautioned me you would reveal your true nature. She was correct. Ivy's lips flickered, almost a smile, as she addressed the assembled group, her voice calm. Logan's aircraft incident was staged, a maneuver to assess allegiance and identify betrayals. You arrived promptly, adorned in your finest attire, eager to assert claims you did not possess. However, this was not about finances, it concerned uncovering the truth. The doors of the grand hall swung open, and Logan entered. He was genuine, substantial, his presence impactful. His suit was understated, without a tie, his shoes showing signs of his journey. A path opened as he moved through the room, the murmurs fading, the confidence disappearing. He paused near Ivy, his hand lightly touching hers, providing a sense of stability. She raised her gaze to him, her expression relaxing for the first time, and he inclined his head, a wordless understanding. He turned to address the room, his tone compassionate and natural. Ivy orchestrated this, the will, the reading, the cameras, everything. She wanted to understand your character when you believed you were unobserved, who would treat an unknown with respect, whose actions would be kind, whose concern would extend to me, irrespective of my financial status. He hesitated, his gaze traveling across the assembly, fixing upon each individual. None of you earned his favor. Logan's eyes settled on Preston, the man who had initially derided Ivy, his gold tie now appearing ostentatious and restrictive. You insulted my wife, Logan stated, his voice subdued yet intensely threatening, each word penetrating the room's astonished quiet. You chuckled as she remained standing, isolated, allowing you to reveal your character. Did you believe I wouldn't notice? Preston recoiled, his earlier confidence vanished, his fingers awkwardly adjusting his tie as if it offered protection. The onlookers observed, motionless, as Logan approached, his stature imposing even in his plain suit. You are not family, Preston, you are a parasite, and I will no longer sustain you. A guard materialized beside Preston, his hold steady, and as Preston departed, his objections were lost in the reverberation of Logan's statements. The room felt lighter, justice a tangible force, Ivy's honor restored with each step of Preston's disgrace. Preston attempted to speak, his voice hoarse. Logan, please, we didn't know. She didn't say anything. Logan's gaze snapped to him, cold and final. She shouldn't have had to. You saw a woman you didn't recognize, and your first reaction was to tear her down. That's not family, that's not loyalty. Clara stepped forward, desperate now. We're sorry, okay? We didn't mean it. Ask her, Logan, ask her to forgive us. Her eyes moved to Ivy, as if begging, but Ivy's expression was unyielding. Her silence felt more condemning than any words. Logan refused to agree. It's not a matter of forgiveness. It's about accountability. He gestured towards Grayson, who produced another document. This is a supplemental clause to the will, taking effect now. Anyone who addressed Ivy disrespectfully today, identified in security camera recordings, audio recordings, or through testimony, will be disinherited. No shares, no properties, no communication. The matter is concluded. Preston began reading names, his voice sharp and authoritative.
Preston Thorne, Marissa Thorne, Clara Evans, Gerald Hayes, Lilian Ward, Trevor Lang.
Each name was announced with force, causing faces to fall, protests to erupt, then subside as security personnel intervened. Preston shouted, "You can't do this. I'm blood." But a guard gently took his arm, guiding him toward the exits. Marissa followed, her crimson dress flowing, her sobs audible. Clara held her damaged phone, quietly murmuring, "This can't be happening." As she was being escorted out, Clara's face lost its color as Logan turned to her, his gaze piercing her like glass. "You turned my wife into a meme," he stated, his voice even but intense, believing your followers would applaud you. "But falsehoods don't endure," he continued. He gestured toward Grayson, who activated his laptop, and Clara's phone vibrated intensely in her hand. Her social media accounts, her empire of influence, were collapsing publicly, posts deleted, followers decreasing by thousands, sponsors severing ties with remarkable efficiency. "You're banned from my companies, my properties, my life," Logan stated as a guard took her arm, her damaged phone falling to the floor. The crowd's gasps were a chorus of awe, the room charged with the excitement of justice. Ivy stood beside Logan, her silence holding weight as Clara's digital influence weakened, her past mistreatment of Ivy now contributing to her downfall. Gerald's wife attempted to protest, her jewels sparkling, but Logan interrupted her. "You insulted my wife, and you are no longer welcome here." They departed, their heads lowered, as onlookers dispersed and guards emptied the room. Lillian's scattered pearls made a brittle sound beneath the footsteps, a suitable conclusion to her arrogance. As the doors shut, just a few remained, 3 individuals who had remained quiet, who hadn't laughed or sneered. Sarah Ellis, the nurse from the wedding video, now older, her eyes filled with relief. Michael Reed, the librarian, who had nodded to Ivy upon her entry, acknowledging her discreetly. And Anna, a groundskeeper who had offered Ivy water prior to the reading, without hesitation. Logan turned to them, his voice gentler now. "You observed her, you didn't judge, that's what family signifies." He looked at Ivy, his hand finding hers again. "You were right about all of it." Ivy's gaze lingered on the empty chairs, the spilled champagne, the broken pearls. "I didn't want to be right," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I wanted them to be better." She faced the 3 who remained, her eyes warm now. "Thank you for seeing me." Logan squeezed her hand, his voice low for her alone. "You are more than they'll ever understand." A slight, genuine smile touched her lips as she moved closer, the fabric of her cardigan lightly against his sleeve. The room was still, the vultures having departed, the truth revealed. Ivy did not require the money, the estate, or the empire. She had never desired them. What she had wanted was Logan, living, complete, belonging to her. And now, with the world reduced to its essence, they remained together, resolute. The hills beyond shone green beneath the April sky, and the cameras ceased blinking, their purpose fulfilled. If this story resonated with you, please show your appreciation with a like, share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it, and subscribe for more stories that explore difficult subjects with hope. Your support helps ensure these stories continue to be told. The moment she arrived on the red carpet, she was dismissed. Her outfit consisted of a simple linen dress, strappy flat sandals, and loose, unstyled hair. She carried a stack of black and white papers in her hand, without a binder or any visible branding. A businesswoman subtly adjusted her Cartier necklace, offered a brief look, and remarked, "Since when do charity galas welcome the locals?" A fashion model turned to her companions and stifled a laugh. She appears to have stepped out of a public library, not a billionaire ball. Rose Avery stood quietly at the VIP check-in. No one inquired about her name. No one examined the invitation she held. To them, she possessed no worth, merely a fleeting amusement in a glittering room, a woman too quiet, too plain, to be taken seriously. However, they were mistaken. The woman they had just humiliated was the actual owner of the entire gala, and the one who held absolute power over the very ecosystem they depended on. The Avery Global Gala stood as the event of the year, taking place in Washington, D.C. At the luxurious Meridian House, a mansion known for its chandeliers and rich history. More than a fundraiser, it represented a strategic competition where prominent figures, senators, CEOs, celebrities, and media moguls, contended for influence. The guest list was carefully selected, with only 200 invitations extended, each serving as a coveted entry into the upper echelons of American wealth and politics. A palpable excitement filled the atmosphere as attendees awaited news of the largest grants, the most esteemed collaborations, or a favorable review from the Avery Foundation, the powerful entity that dictated funding for areas ranging from education to defense contracts. Rose Avery moved through the gathering discreetly, her canvas backpack resting on her shoulder, her proposal for a complimentary community library held securely beneath it. Months were spent developing the plan, filled with a deep commitment to literacy and empowerment for children in underserved neighborhoods. The soft ivory, second-hand linen dress with its square neck moved gently as she walked. Her sandals made a quiet clicking sound on the marble floor. She chose not to wear makeup; it wasn't necessary. Her face was remarkable in its simplicity, with pronounced cheekbones and eyes that reflected a quiet determination. However, to the gala's guests, she was unnoticed or even a target. The lobby presented a scene of elaborate couture gowns and perfectly tailored tuxedos, with diamonds catching the light. A tech billionaire, sporting a velvet blazer, expressed disdain as Rose walked by, asking, "What's she doing here? Distributing flyers for a bake sale?" A congresswoman's aide, enjoying a glass of champagne, whispered to her superior, "Have they begun inviting anyone who walks in off the sidewalk?" She appears as though she instructs yoga at a local community center. A wave of laughter echoed among their group, precise and critical. Rose remained unfazed. She continued walking, her gaze fixed ahead and her pace even, as though the voices around her were merely ambient sound. Approaching the VIP check-in, an employee wearing a tailored black suit gave her a cursory look. "Name?" he inquired, his voice precise, seemingly certain she wasn't authorized. Rose presented her invitation, a simple card featuring a single, raised A. However, before she could respond, a woman adorned in a sequined gown pushed past her. "Pardon me, I am on the guest registry," the woman stated, displaying a wrist covered in diamonds. A staffer allowed her entry, disregarding Rose completely. "Ma'am," he said, addressing her, "this area is reserved for priority guests. Please try the general seating in the back." Rose acknowledged this, remaining calm, and moved aside. She offered no objections, spoke no protests. She simply stood there, holding her papers, her face calm but resolute. It was then that a young man wearing a well-cut navy suit, Evan Caldwell, the senator's son who has 1 million followers on social media, noticed her. He retrieved his phone, a smirk playing on his lips, and began recording. "Hey, watch this," he said to his live stream, adjusting the camera to focus on Rose. "This woman believes she's attending the Avery Gala wearing a second-hand dress and carrying a pile of printer paper. Seriously, are you planning to present a free library proposal to billionaires? Best of luck, dear." His viewers immediately filled the chat with laughing emojis and mocking remarks. "She's certainly brave," Evan said with a laugh, zooming in on her sandals. "But this is an entirely different level of unrealistic." The audience reacted strongly, their laughter escalating in volume and intensity. A reality TV star, wearing a red dress with a low neckline, joined in the mocking, tossing her hair. Honey, this isn't a PDA meeting. Go home and change, she said. A hedge fund manager, his cufflinks catching the light, added, she's probably here to request funding. She should have at least chosen a more appropriate outfit. Rose remained motionless, her eyes following the detailed ceiling trim as if committing it to memory. She offered no reply, avoiding their stares. Her silence wasn't a sign of vulnerability. It was a barrier, unwavering and composed. While Rose waited near the VIP check-in, a cluster of young heiresses in dazzling gowns gathered around her, observing her like predators. One, holding a Chanel purse, glanced at Rose's cloth backpack and scoffed. Is that her bag? I wouldn't use it to carry my dog's toys. Another approached, her voice laced with malice. Sweetie, this is the Avery Gala, not a soup kitchen. Why don't you spare us all the discomfort and leave? Laughter rippled through the room, the sounds bouncing off the marble walls and attracting attention. A photographer positioned nearby quickly captured an image, remarking to his colleague, "This'll go viral. Homeless hippie crashes elite gala." Rose's fingers curled more tightly around her invitation, though she remained silent. Her expression stayed composed, almost otherworldly, as if the comments were water flowing over glass. Despite this, each remark stung, and the visible enjoyment others took in her discomfort felt overwhelming. Within the ballroom, a palpable excitement filled the air. Tables were adorned with crystal stemware, and each centerpiece was a lavish display of orchids and gold leaf. The stage was prominently positioned at the front, enveloped by velvet curtains, where the evening's significant announcement was to be made, the reveal of the gala's primary sponsor, responsible for covering the expenses of the entire event. Many people believed it would be Nathaniel Avery, the solitary billionaire whose corporation Avery Global functioned as an unofficial power, influencing national spending and cultural trends. His lack of public appearances in recent years had only intensified speculation, but tonight, the expectation was that he would appear. Rose secured a seat at the perimeter of the room, close to a utility entrance where servers moved between areas. She placed her papers on the table, carefully smoothing them, and retrieved a small notebook from her backpack to write down some thoughts. The woman beside her, a media heiress wearing a sapphire-encrusted gown, looked over and expressed disbelief. Are you really writing in a spiral notebook? At the Avery Gala? Her friend, a pop star with a platinum blonde bob, moved closer. Perhaps she's recording her feelings about feeling so different. They laughed, not attempting to speak quietly. Rose continued writing, her pen moving smoothly, her face showing intense concentration. The gala began with a string quartet, their music flowing amidst the conversations. The host, a silver-haired TV anchor with a voice like velvet, stepped onto the stage to greet the audience. Tonight, we celebrate not just philanthropy, but power, he announced, his smile radiant. The Avery Foundation has influenced our nation's future, education, infrastructure, and policy, and we're here to see who will carry that legacy on. A palpable anticipation filled the room, with many heads turning, trying to locate Nathaniel Avery. Was he observing from a private box at the back? The atmosphere was charged. Throughout the evening, the taunting of Rose continued relentlessly. A cluster of young influencers, positioned near the bar, repeatedly photographed her from a distance, adding captions like "Haha Gala Crasher" and "Who let her in?" Evan Caldwell, continuing his live stream, provided commentary on her every action. She was simply reviewing her documents as if she intended to revolutionize everything. A reminder, you won't receive any funding appearing like that. His online discussion was filled with approving reactions to his humor, encouraging him to continue. A senator's wife, listening nearby, turned to her husband. It's quite embarrassing, actually. They should increase security measures. People like her diminish the significance of the event. Rose, in the meantime, was listening to the speeches. A technology leader announced a commitment of $5 million for AI research. A congressman pledged $3 million for veterans programs. Each announcement received applause, but Rose's eyes remained focused on her notebook, where she documented observations about literacy gaps in rural schools. When a waiter offered her a glass of champagne, she smiled and requested water instead. Plant-based diet, huh? The The waiter remarked, half joking. You're likely the only one here who doesn't eat caviar. Rose chuckled quietly, a first indication of relaxation. Caviar's overrated, she commented, and returned to her notes. Amidst a pause in the speeches, a well-known lobbyist moved toward Rose's table, his expression difficult to miss. He took her library proposal, examining it as if it were a simple sketch. Free libraries? For those children, he stated, his voice audible to those at adjacent tables. Darling, you're misusing everyone's time. Focus on teaching yoga or your current profession. He returned the papers, one page drifting to the floor. As Rose bent to retrieve it, a passing socialite inadvertently crushed it, her stiletto leaving a mark. She chuckled without turning around. The room filled with suppressed laughter, eyes turning to observe Rose's discomfort. She picked up the page, carefully smoothing it, and returned to her seat, her expression composed. However, the atmosphere surrounding her felt oppressive, thick with the audience's amusement at her misfortune. The room's unkindness escalated when Evan and his friends came to her table. The camera continued to record, his smile expansive. Hey, library lady, he called out, his voice intended to attract attention. What's your proposal? Free books for kids? That's charming, but this is a different level. You aren't securing a meeting with Nathaniel Avery appearing as if you just emerged from a commune. His companions chuckled, and several adjacent tables echoed the amusement, their laughter rising like a surge. Rose lifted her gaze, her eyes locking with Evan's for the first time. They were bright, unwavering, almost intense. She remained silent, maintaining eye contact until he visibly hesitated, a nervous chuckle escaping him as he addressed his camera. Tough crowd. Huh? He mumbled, stepping back. The gala proceeded towards its peak. The host reappeared on stage, his demeanor serious, yet vibrant. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the moment you've all anticipated. The Avery Foundation has consistently been a source of influence, and tonight we announce not only the sponsor of this gala, but the new steward of Avery Global itself, the individual who now oversees its extensive resources, its funding channels, and its vision for America's future. The room fell silent, forks clinking against plates forgotten. Everyone leaned forward, anticipating Nathaniel Avery's imposing figure to appear. Instead, the host extended his arm toward the back of the room. Please welcome the new owner of Avery Global, the woman now responsible for all political, educational, and media funding pipelines, Ms. Rose Avery. A noticeable reaction went through the crowd, with many people turning to look for a prominent figure in a private area. However, Rose rose to her feet, her linen dress reflecting the light, her sandals making almost no sound on the floor. She approached the stage, still holding her papers, and her hair remained unbound. The room was still, with all eyes focused on her, and many people were visibly surprised. Evan's phone shifted a little, his live stream showing his shocked expression. The businesswoman wearing the Cartier necklace sputtered, coughing on her wine. The model who had previously made fun of her appearance, referencing a library look, became motionless, her hand shaking as she held her clutch. Rose entered the spotlight, appearing exactly as she always did. There was no elaborate gown, no sparkling jewels, just Rose. She placed her documents on the podium and surveyed the audience, her eyes pausing on the first row, on Evan, the influencers, and the senator's wife. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm but carried a weight that filled the room. Tonight is not simply about raising money, it is about determining who truly deserves funding. She paused, allowing the words to resonate, because I am capable of writing a $10 million check, or I can erase your name from this entire ecosystem permanently. As Rose approached the podium, the spotlight illuminated the faint creases in her linen dress, a stark contrast to the room's opulence. She placed her papers on the table, and for a brief instant the audience paused, anticipating a misstep. However, she began to speak, her voice firm, cutting through the quiet. I am Nathaniel Avery's daughter. For 7 years I have lived among you, unnoticed, to comprehend the world my father's empire influences. Every dollar you have pursued, every agreement you have finalized, every aspiration you have financed, it has been under my observation. The room reacted, faces losing color as the reality became apparent. Evan's phone vibrated in his hand, his live stream now displaying his own collapse. The businesswoman's Cartier necklace sparkled as she held it, her empire suddenly vulnerable. Rose stood firm, her unassuming nature now a symbol of authority, her silent strength unmistakable. The stillness was absolute. Evan's live stream chat filled with question marks and surprised emojis, his viewers struggling to understand what they just witnessed. The senator's wife squeezed her husband's arm, her face drained of color. The media heiress dropped her fork, the clatter reverberating in the quiet. The crowd's astonishment intensified as Rose's words lingered. She raised her head, her eyes meeting the senator's wife who had previously labeled her a detriment to the event. "You believed I was insignificant," she stated, her voice calm yet sharp, "but I'm the one who has been endorsing your grants, validating your initiatives, observing each action you've taken. My father established Avery Global, but I am the one who has been managing it, discreetly until this moment." The room felt smaller, her presence dominating every space. The pop star's platinum bob shook as she understood her latest tour was funded by Rose's endorsement. The tech mogul's wife, who had previously belittled her as someone of lesser status, settled back into her chair, her expression showing fear. Rose's unassuming nature was no longer a source of amusement. It demonstrated her power and influence. Rose remained calm, avoiding any display of triumph, and proceeded with, "7 years ago, my father, Nathaniel Avery, presented me with a choice. To truly understand what the world requires, I've lived among you unnoticed and ordinary. I've taught children to read in crumbling schools. I've eaten meals that cost less than your coffee. I've listened to people you'd never notice, and I've built something substantial." She presented her papers, the library proposal. "This is the Quiet Power Initiative, a network of free libraries across America, starting with the kids who need them most. I'm funding it myself, $50 million to start, no grants needed." A hush lingered in the air, some murmuring, others frozen in disbelief. Rose's gaze repeatedly scanned the room, unwavering and determined. "However, let me state this plainly. This environment, your initiatives, your endeavors, your reputations are reliant on Avery Global, and I determine who remains within it. Those who create, who contribute, who demonstrate foresight, they will prosper. Those who undermine, who deride, who perceive authority as a trivial pursuit." She stopped, her look directed at Evan, then the influencers, then the businesswoman. "Your involvement is terminated." The impact of her words felt devastating. Evan's phone continued recording, though his hand trembled. His scholarship from the Avery Foundation, his White House internship, his entire future seemed to vanish before him. The influencers who had photographed her quickly tried to remove their posts, their faces pale. The senator's wife spoke urgently to her husband, who was already calling his chief of staff, attempting to save their funding. Rose did not pause to observe them. Turning back to the audience, her voice lowered, yet remained authoritative. "The Quiet Power Initiative goes beyond books. It's about providing individuals with opportunities to advance, to gain recognition, and to be listened to. I have witnessed the impact of investing in those who are often disregarded, and I am here to ensure that continues, beginning tonight." She descended from the stage, her sandals making a gentle sound, and returned to her place. The chamber filled with a combination of surprised applause and anxious whispers. The host, regaining composure, attempted to introduce the following speaker, but the audience was distracted. Everyone's attention was focused on Rose, who remained seated, calmly reviewing her notebook as if the events hadn't occurred. By morning, the consequences arrived quickly and severely. Evan Caldwell's Avery Foundation scholarship was withdrawn, and his internship was terminated via a brief email from the White House. His live stream, intended as a ridicule of Rose, unexpectedly gained widespread attention for negative reasons, and his name is now linked to arrogance and downfall. Those influencers who had shared her photos were barred from Avery-funded events, and their brand partnerships ended abruptly. The businesswoman, adorned with a Cartier necklace, discovered her company's $20 million education grant had been withdrawn and rerouted to Rose's library program. The senator's wife and her husband encountered a harsh truth. Their favored initiatives, ranging from think tanks to campaign funds, were discontinued, diminishing their impact within a few hours. By morning, the lives of the elite were falling apart. The reality television personality who had instructed Rose to depart received an email. Her Avery-sponsored docuseries, Her Pathway to Credibility, was cancelled, and her name was removed from the foundation's list. She looked at her phone, her red dress from the gala discarded on the floor, her career seemingly ruined. The hedge fund manager, who had mocked her attire, discovered his firm's $15 million defense contract had been given to a rival company, a brief message from Avery Global mentioning ethical incompatibility. The cufflinks felt like restraints now, his arrogance a tightening grip. Social media was filled with screenshots of their mockery, now accompanied by captions referencing their downfall, a clear case of karma. Viewers watching Evans' archived livestream celebrated as his confident expression transformed into a representation of his self-destruction, his future seemingly undone by the woman he'd previously dismissed as delusional. Rose, in the meantime, had already begun her work. She convened with community leaders in a small D.C. office, her cloth backpack resting on the floor, her proposal now serving as a detailed plan. The Quiet Power Initiative opened its first library in a neglected neighborhood, with plans for 50 more by year's end. She didn't gloat, didn't seek the spotlight, she just worked, her quiet power reshaping the world one step at a time. The influencers who'd tagged Rose with Galacrasher were now absent from the elite circle. Their invitations to Avery-backed events, fashion weeks, charity balls, and premieres vanished, and their follower counts plummeted as brands distanced themselves. A tearful apology video was released, but the damage was already done. Rose's team had initiated the process for excluding her from future funding. The photographer who captured Rose's viral humiliation had his press credentials revoked and was dropped by his agency. His moment of notoriety became his downfall. Across the internet, the public celebrated what they perceived as justice. Memes featuring Rose's serene face with the caption, "Never judge the quiet ones," proliferated on all platforms. Those who had previously mocked her sandals now confronted a changed situation. Rose Avery didn't just win, she redefined the landscape, leaving the established order behind. The gala's elite had dismissed her sandals, her proposals, her aspirations. They perceived her as insignificant. But Rose Avery was far from insignificant. She embodied the future, and she had just reshaped theirs. This is the impact of the overlooked. If this narrative resonated with you, share, comment, and subscribe for more.